Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Brydge Club podcast. This is your host, Ruffin. Today I'm chatting with Allison Hogan, co-founder of DeskSides, a new platform introducing brands to journalists at a fraction of the cost, without the PR headache, giving smaller brands a chance to have their stories told and helping journalists efficiently tell them while being fairly compensated. On Allison's first day working as an intern in PR at her now co-founder Blish's firm, she landed Reese Witherspoon as a contact. In today's episode, we chat all about Allison's experiences working on the brand side as well as on the agency side of PR. She shares tons of tips about successfully landing PR, especially for early stage founders. Really excited to share this episode, so let's get started. Okay, so before starting DeskSides, you worked in PR. And I remember you telling me that Reese Witherspoon was one of the first contacts you ever got on the job. So can you just start us off by telling that wild story?
Yes, I was just thinking about this last week because I think it's such a good example of building long-term relationships in PR, and it was really not purposefully. So, for those that don't know, my co-founder actually was my boss. So I started out as her intern in college, and she had tasked me with finding Reese's assistant's contact, and it was just for gifting for a swimwear client. And so I am the type of person that if you give me like a name and one piece of information, I could probably find them in 5 minutes. And so she had done that. I had found it pretty quickly, and we had started that conversation. And then fast forward to a year later, I was working in-house at the swimwear company, and she was doing kind of outside PR work with us. And we helped launch the first swimwear line with Draper James. So it really came full circle. And I think it goes to show that really nurturing those connections is so important and seeing where they can go. And then, things align when the time is right. But it's funny because that was really not my intention, and it really escalated and then became this great thing. So it's a good story for sure.
Wait, what is your strategy for finding contacts and getting people to respond to your cold inbound?
Well, I think publicists in general are stalkers. We are constantly having to follow up. I have a few different ways. LinkedIn, and there's all these databases where you can somehow plug in and find their email. IMDb Pro is a good industry secret. I would look there too. But yeah, you just got to learn how to use Google and you'll find it. And I don't know, it's one of those things that I thought everyone was good at it, but Blish kind of hypes me up and makes me think that I'm really special at it. So I don't know, everyone could learn these secrets, but yeah, my friends like to use it for their personal advantages too.
I love that. And sounds like you're thinking about these things with the long-term relationship in mind, which I'm sure comes across in your initial outreach and how you're
Yes.
communicating with people, which I feel like everyone always appreciates, not having a transactional kind of outreach come through.
That's honestly the genesis of how we started DeskSides, was building those long-term relationships. A lot of people don't understand that no one wants to go into a business relationship where it's totally transactional and you can both tell that the other person wants something. It's really just introducing yourself and getting your foot in the door, and the rest will come as it should.
Before we talk a little bit about DeskSides, tell us more about working at a PR agency. One, what was your role? What were the types of clients you were working with? What were the media outlets you were getting people involved with?
So I had originally worked at a swimwear brand, as I mentioned, and I felt like once I transitioned to an agency, I realized that that's really where I thrive. I think having multiple clients and getting to be in different worlds was key for me. I think that I worked with all different clients, from world renowned brands like Ralph Lauren and Gucci to really localized brands. I was working at an agency in Chicago, and I'd really seen it all, and all of them, no matter what, the strategy doesn't necessarily change. It's just tailoring it to what market you're looking at. And I loved that. And I loved kind of figuring out the different puzzle pieces for each and how we would go about that and really strategizing a game plan. I think that's where I was thriving for sure.
Can you share a little bit more around like what a great strategy might look like? Whether it's an amazing brand like Gucci or even like an earlier stage founder and business that's kind of just getting off the ground.
For sure. I think that the problem that we saw, and I still see a lot with brands and founders, is that everyone is so entrenched in their own product and what their world is that you have to go outside yourself a little bit. And what is going to be interesting to a consumer, and that really parlays into like what is interesting to a reporter and their audience. So it all is the same. There's always going to be 100 other products that are like yours. And I think we hear this a lot with founders that say, there's nobody that's doing this. There's always going to be 100 people that are doing it. And it's not necessarily your product that's the secret sauce. It's how you're reaching your consumer and pulling them in and making them a part of your world that is what is key. And so you really think about what your secret sauce is in that term and then blow out your strategy that way. So how you think about influencers and how you think about your local press and your national press and really making sure that all of that sticks together and meshes and makes sense and kind of really channeling. Your voice might be a little bit different as you go through each of these, but the message is still the same.
Is that exercise something that a PR agency would typically help a business with? And is that something you guys at DeskSides help people with?
So yes, typically that is what a PR agency would do. They would sit down with you, and that process does take a while. We like to pride ourselves on being more high touch with our subscribers, and even as we grow, the people that we have on our team will continue to do this for brands, but being able to sit with them, there's so many people that join DeskSides that have never been in the PR game. So educating them is so important. And, what a fact sheet looks like, or things that might, for me, who we've been in the PR world, sound simple, but some people are not this way. And so figuring out what high-res imagery they need and if they're on affiliate and making sure that they're set up for success, we absolutely still do that for people.
Can you share a little bit around kind of the pain points and challenges you saw in the traditional world of PR from both like the agency perspective as well as working internally at the swimwear brand, and kind of how that led you to start DeskSides?
Whether or not we're actively working with brands, have been aware that not everyone is based in New York. Not everyone can fly themselves to New York or fly a publicist and take time to schedule childcare and things like that. And that was always in the back of our minds. And then during the pandemic, I was still working at an agency in Chicago, and Blish was working at her firm in Kansas City. And it was just an interesting time in PR because everyone was temporarily like reinventing the wheel as we went. And so journalists were moving out of New York, either temporarily or permanently. Brands were kind of trying to virtually meet up with journalists. And we found that we were doing these virtual DeskSides as we would in person and having the same success. And so we were giving these brands that maybe we didn't even work with, and we knew it was a hard time during the pandemic and would schedule them just for free, honestly, to get a chance to get in front of these editors. We knew that there was something there. And so we would always commiserate and bounce ideas off of each other, even when we weren't working together. And so as these conversations unfolded, we really wanted to make PR accessible and affordable for all of these businesses that we knew could thrive if they had that access. And so that's really how it was born. It wasn't this grand plan. It was really two publicists being like, okay, there's a gap in the market here. How do we fill this? And it slowly came to be, and here we are.
So in the past, would you literally have to meet a publicist like in New York in person? Like what was that process?
Yes. So for those that don't know, a desk side is traditionally a meeting in the PR world that takes place with a journalist at their desk. And so you would be hauling samples and hauling all of your stuff to New York to go sit at Condé Nast or Hearst. And half the time, these journalists are so overwhelmed that they would have to reschedule or cancel. And so you're sitting there like, okay, great. I just traveled here. And so it was just really time consuming, and the logistics were crazy, and journalists were so overwhelmed with the amount of pitches, and still are, the ones that aren't using DeskSides, but with the amount of irrelevant pitches that they're getting. And it just was so clunky. And I mean, there was such a new way of working to be had. I mean, we knew that eventually this was coming. And so the pandemic really just brought everything together in a interesting way for us.
So can you talk a little bit about how DeskSides now works? Also I did not know the meaning of the name. Love that.
Oh yeah.
Very fun. How does it work from the publicist perspective as well as the brand or company perspective?
It's a two-sided marketplace. And originally we didn't have this set up. We weren't thinking about publicists that maybe wanted to join, and they were really interested even from the beta phase of wanting to be a part of this and using this for all of the brands they work with, which was a great surprise. So if you're a brand or a publicist, you will get matched to relevant journalists. So we're taking out the guesswork for you rather than just being a database or these one-off pitches with deadlines. And so we match them together. They set up conversations and really start to build those long-term relationships. We also just built our story sourcing tool. So we do have, for journalists that are on quicker deadlines, to be able to submit stories they're working on and for brands to pitch. So we're really looking at a full self-service PR platform and taking out that guesswork. So making sure that journalists aren't inundated with brands that have nothing to do with what they're writing about, and for brands knowing who to reach out to, which is really key for them.
Can you share an example of maybe a success story from the platform so far?
Totally. So one of the brands that we worked with, who has been with us since the beginning and has been a beta tester, she had met with a journalist and they really hit it off. I mean, I think they maybe even had like 2 desk sides. They just got along really well. And pretty immediately, which was a nice surprise for us, they were featured in not 1, but 2 articles. And so that was the moment that we were like, oh, we really do have something here. I mean, this is going to take us somewhere. And that relationship still exists today. They've been featured in other articles by this journalist, and it's such a long-term success for us that we love talking about.
Are you vetting the journalists that come onto the platform, and kind of what's the process behind that?
Yes, we do vet the journalists based on, and we vet the brands as well. So The journalists that come onto our platform, we really mostly have national journalists. We have people from places like Wall Street Journal, Vogue, Forbes, and they're either people, it's been a fun word of mouth game. So people that we've had relationships with during our time as publicists, we still like to call ourselves publicists, but as true publicists, and them telling their friends or finding us on Instagram. And for those that we see aren't a fit immediately, we do let them know, like, this is going to be something that eventually will be great for you. And it's usually hyper local journalists that are only in one city, and we don't really have brands that would be a match. We do try to keep them engaged to where this isn't a fit for you right now, but it will be, and hang on. And we have a great community of journalists that in the meantime you can kind of connect with or kind of watch out for what brands are on the platform. And same with brands. We are really focused on vetting brands that are going to be successful. For example, right now, I don't think a local boutique, I'm based in Kansas City, so a Kansas City based boutique is not going to find success pitching to these national platforms in the way that a CPG brand is. So making sure that they're going to be set up for success and we're not wasting anyone's time, whether that be the brand or the journalist.
And I feel like another big value add for the brands is the pricing. Can you share a bit more
Yes.
around? I mean, I've heard crazy quotes from
Yes.
PR agencies, especially for like earlier stage companies that I just feel like wouldn't make sense.
No.
So curious, one, like the traditional way, how much could that cost a founder or a brand? I'm sure there are some wild numbers out there. And then how is your pricing different, and how are you making it more accessible?
So traditionally, PR agencies, and I honestly think this is lowballing it, but can be up to $10,000 per month. And if you're working with a bigger, like Fleischman or Edelman, I mean, it's more than that.
I've heard numbers like that often.
Yes. And for smaller brands, that is, no one should be paying that kind of money. I mean, it's ridiculous for people that can't afford a full team of publicists. And so we are at $110 a month, which we try to think of as like a, not just a Netflix subscription, but just another subscription that you can add to your kind of your toolbox that isn't going to run you out of business because you're trying to pay for it, and that you can really get as much out that you put in. So being full self-service, if you want to contact journalists every day, you absolutely can't. Like, you can do as much or as little as you want, but we just don't want to break the bank for these small businesses.
For like the $10,000 a month, does that even guarantee you any placement?
No. So,
That
and
just makes no sense to me.
I know. So I would love to know more logistics around what that looks like. I think it's really just, I don't know. It's crazy to me. Even when Blish and I consult with clients, we would never charge close to that amount. I mean, that's crazy town. So we, I think you probably pay for publicist time, but you don't ever, press placements are never, this is the most important thing that I think is a sales tactic for a lot of publicists, is PR is never guaranteed. They cannot, when people email you saying, hey, we have an extra spot in Forbes, or we have like, that is, don't ever listen to that. That is not true PR. That is not true journalism. And it's so disheartening. We get client friends that will send us those emails, and sometimes I'll post them onto our Instagram because I think they're so funny. I can't believe that people use that as a tactic, but PR is never guaranteed, and especially not even for $10,000. So you don't have to pay that much money to have success in the PR world.
Any other red flags that you can think of that brands should be aware of when they're coming across PR agencies, PR opportunities?
I think anything that focuses on short-term, one-off situations, just be very weary of. Every publicist or journalist that truly is accredited and ethical will never ever offer you like a spot or make it sound like you're being sold into a story. That's not how it works. So just be aware and know that you also don't have to like go out of business to be paying for PR every month.
Do brands ever have to pay, like for example, the Wall Street Journal or Vogue for placements, or is that even allowed?
No, it's not allowed. So another important factor for brands when they're looking into PR is affiliate. So when you're joining like a ShareASale or an AWIN and having that as a tool when you're pitching, brands will be prioritized by publications like Vogue or Wall Street Journal, where they're getting an affiliate kickback if someone purchases it. that never guarantees you placement still. It does, I think they prioritize you and you're kind of out of the game if you're not on affiliate at all, to be really honest. Um, but no one will ever ask you to pay for placement. I will say we've had a journalist come to us before and offer that. And we were like, we're never working with you again. There's no way that is legal or ethical. So if you're a brand listening, don't ever do that. And if you're paying for a placement, maybe it's paying for a PR newswire, which is where you're sending your press release out. That's it. But coverage is never guaranteed.
Very good to know. So I guess I didn't realize this, which I'm learning a lot about. I don't know much about PR, so thank you. So like the Wall Street Journal would literally take an affiliate cut of like your brand if you get placed there. And what's like the standard cut? And I guess that just like goes on forever as long as that article is up.
Yes. So right now we're in an interesting time with publications where their advertising dollars are going down drastically.
Yeah.
And this is how they're making money these days. And so
interesting.
when you sign up for a share a sale is what I'm using as an example because all of our clients in the past have used it. You fill out like your data feed and it connects to your Shopify and creates an affiliate link for these platforms and they can just pull it off of there. And so I do know I've seen share a sale numbers where they're still getting kickbacks a few years later. So I'm not sure it ever expires, which is great for them.
So you mentioned like brands can actually pitch Wall Street Journal, Vogue, whatever it be on the DeskSides platform. What advice would you have for brands creating pitches? Like what do these companies like want to see? What incentivizes them to want to feature you?
I think that it depends on the editor that you're talking to. There are some editors that focus on product roundups. And so you can be more about your product and that you're on affiliate and incentivizing them that way when it's like a commerce editor is a really good example of those people that handle the roundups. I think that when you're talking to other news editors, I recommend getting your foot in the door and introducing yourself and asking what they're working on. And you could talk to them and realize like they've moved on from whatever relevance, like they could be doing something totally different and it might not be a fit for you. Or you can talk to them and just find out what they're working on and check back in with them in a few months. It's all about relationships. I can't stress that enough. I think people find there are brands that go out there and will try it for a month and not see results. And they'll hop from agency to agency and they think it's the agency when it's actually, they're the problem. You're not paying for short-term success. You're paying for long-term success. And this is an investment in your business. And so you have to be patient. It requires a lot of patience. And I think just introducing yourself and letting them know who you are and what you work with, they will remember. If you're a candle business in Kansas City and 3 months down the line, they're working on a roundup of fall candles, they'll remember you and be like, hey, I actually talked to this person and this is cool. And here we go. So I think that it's just making sure that you're aware that it's not going to come tomorrow. It will come, but you have to really put in the work and require some patience.
And I feel like one, it's not only the timing, but also I imagine like they might think of another journalist in their network who you might be a better fit for. So just like
yes,
very much a relationship game. And I feel like that advice so much applies also to like founders pitching VCs. Like
yes,
not be the right timing, maybe in a year. It's just like so much about relationships.
For sure. And we have so many journalists that we've connected to, had these conversations. And then, as you said, like one of their friends will include us in a roundup and we're like, oh, this is such a nice surprise. And they've heard about it from their friend, or we'll send them a sample and they'll be wearing the product and their friend will find out. And it really does work that way. As much as people want to be able to sell PR as this quick gimmick, it's not that way at all.
Okay, switching gears a little bit, would love to hear about your team's own growth strategy. Like, has PR been a big part of it? What other things have you tried? And, how have you grown DeskSides so far?
I think we've been great about growing organically. We are both publicists. And so every PR platform so far that has ever been built, I think it shows that it's really not people that have been in this industry. And we've been focused on trying to not only build our platform, but kind of build a community for these journalists and having them involved in the decision making on the platform and finding out exactly what they need. We've grown really organically with little advertising. We've had journalists, as I mentioned, that already knew the platform and friend of a friend, but we've also kicked up the Substack advertising. So we have another great way to connect with journalists is to find their Substacks and subscribe. They have a ton of tips. They have stories they're working on. And so when we've advertised in these Substacks, not only are we helping our journalist friends that don't get paid a lot, but we're also knowing that they have this great community that would benefit from DeskSides, and they can meet with these journalists on DeskSides, the brands that subscribe. So it kind of benefits everyone. So we've really just been word of mouth so far, which is really nice, but we are kicking up our sales acquisition and trying to scale that. And it's just, when you're a founder and you're doing 100 things at once, it'll be nice to have a salesperson someday.
Definitely. I've actually heard a lot of folks recently using Substack as a really strong advertising platform. So I think just like higher conversions, higher clicks, you have someone's email. So very good strategy.
Yeah, I think we've actually started a Substack about 2 months ago, and it's been really successful. And we actually just had someone ask if they could advertise in it. And we were like, oh, we didn't even think about that. So having that even as a extra revenue stream for your own business, I think is really smart. I will say, I think something that hasn't, and this is probably just because we're B2B really, but hasn't worked for us, I think would be Instagram advertising, only because that is not, if we knew that wasn't really where our customer was, any brand is probably too busy to be engaging daily with our Instagram, and same with journalists. So we really use it as a portfolio and to show what we're doing and who we are. But that, I think, for B2B is not where the success lies, for sure.
I feel like LinkedIn could be a good platform.
Yes, LinkedIn is much better for that.
So I know your team is in the middle of a fundraise. You've raised some angel capital so far. Would just be curious to hear like how your team is thinking about the fundraise for DeskSides and any just like advice or lessons learned along the way.
I could talk about this for hours, and I'm sure you could too. So I think this has been the biggest learning curve for us because neither of us went to business school. We were journalists, students. So we laugh that this is like going to business school every single day and taking a crash course. I think that, and I do want to mention, Brydge Club has been so helpful for us. Having workshops like that where you're connecting and asking questions and having some sort of guidance on how to do this, like, it sounds horrible, but at the beginning we didn't really have a strategy. Like we were so naive in a good way, but having places like that to go and connect with other founders and ask questions and be able to sit with VCs and ask questions without having to pitch them is really helpful. So I think the most important lesson is that all money is not created equal. And I think that we went into this really looking for just about anyone to give us money. And we had a founder friend that said to us once that fundraising is like dating. and you want to make sure that both of you are a fit for each other. And so you really want an investor that's going to be in the trenches with you when things are going bad, just as much as you want them to be on the mountaintop with you when you're successful and things are going great. And so we're really focused on finding that right fit for us, and we want to be really careful about who's going to be on our cap table, because at the end of the day, you're giving people a portion of your business. So you don't just want to give it to everyone. So I think that is really, really important.
I actually heard someone say recently that the founder-investor relationship lasts longer than most marriages. So that really puts it into perspective.
I believe it. It is the due diligence that goes behind fundraising. I mean, it's like no other.
Would love to also hear, you've mentioned your co-founder a few times, Blish. Can you share just a little bit about her background, and then generally, like, is it just you two on the team now? How are kind of the different roles split? Like, who's doing what, and how are you thinking about the team?
So for context, her and I are 20 years apart. She'll kill me for saying that, but she has had a really incredible work career. So she has worked in-house at Ralph Lauren forever. She's worked at Edelman, so both on the agency side and in-house in New York and Chicago, similar to me. And then she started her own firm about 10 years ago and has been working with clients of all scale as well. She's also I think she's been an on-air reporter at one point. Wow. So she's really seen all sides of the business. And so we operate, technically she is the CEO who is more numbers focused, and I'm the chief product officer. So really looking at our product, but we really do everything together. We don't silo ourselves off. We're constantly texting. I joke that like our texts are like our Slack. We're just constantly going back and forth. We're on the phone. So I think that we split things up, that she lets me do more of the creative and she does a lot of the business admin, as much as both of us hate to do it. And then we also have a really great fractional CTO who worked at Meta and Amazon. He built the real-time infrastructure at Meta. So he's really cool. He moved back to Kansas City and has been working with us for the past year. And then we have a contracted developer that works with him. And so it's a small team. We do really everything still. I think we're ready. And as soon as we close our seed round, we will hopefully have a sales team that we can implement, but we do a lot. And I think that it's important. Our CTO's name's Jeff, and he gave us great advice that you want to be as close to the product as possible. And I think that also goes into everything you do as a founder. You're really doing every part of the business. And when it even comes down to like business admin of like taxes to doing your social media, you are doing everything. And so I think that makes you stronger in the long run, but it's a learning experience for sure.
Yeah, totally agree. Makes you stronger in the long term, but I'm sure it is not easy when you're in the thick of it.
No.
How did you guys think about, because neither of you come from like technical backgrounds, so how did you go about finding your CTO, and any like mistakes you made in that process or lessons you'd share with other founders maybe looking to find a CTO?
Oh, yes. We originally got a grant from somewhere in Kansas City to build our first iteration of our platform. And we got connected to a developer that was well known around town. And I'm trying to be nice as I'm saying this. I think originally were like, here's our idea, go build it. And because we're not technical and didn't understand, and they eventually started trying to kind of charge us. They tried to charge us $80,000 more than like what we were originally paying. And we were like, where is this coming from? And
that is insane.
Yeah, they would try to charge us like $100 per email or something stupid like that. And they were not doing anything for our platform. And so growth was like at a snail's pace. And we were like, we don't want to ever talk to you again. So get out. And we got connected to Jeff through an investor here in Kansas City that has been helping us advice wise and being a good mentor to us. And Jeff rebuilt our platform and made it 20 times better, literally within probably a week. And obviously
We love Jeff.
We love Jeff. And now it's different because we do get into Figma and we're building the pages and we're not trying to like shove it off to someone. But it really, I would find a partner that is going to listen to you and be able to, especially if you're not technical, he really understands, like, he doesn't ever judge us for dumb questions. And I hate saying dumb questions, but we can ask some in the tech world, probably a dumb question, and really find someone that's patient and willing to like teach you as you go. And so I think that's been an unexpected side of this, is that it's made me more interested if I ever got the time to learn how to code and things like that, where being as close to your product as possible is going to save you so much money in the long run. Outsourcing is great, but in terms of your product, try not to outsource as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that was great advice. I used to have to teach at my old job engineers like financial accounting and finance. So, and they would teach me engineering.
Yeah, they have very different brains in the best way than other people do.
Yeah, totally. So it's a fun exercise. But
yes.
As we start to wrap things up, anything exciting for you and the DeskSides team that you want to plug?
I know I mentioned our story sourcing tool. That's been exciting to launch because I think it just gives brands another touch point to connect with journalists that are on a quicker deadline. So if journalists have a story that's coming out in a week and they need a few more sources, no matter if you're matched to them on our platform, you can submit your pitch and be considered. So I think that's super exciting. But another goal of ours is incorporating some sort of affiliate partnership. So we do right now check and make sure that the brands that come on have affiliate on their own, but we would love to be able to like incorporate that. So as you get onboarded, that's something that's automatic to our platform. So it will come eventually. It's not coming in the next month, but that does excite me because, as I mentioned, I think people that aren't in affiliate are being left out of the game, and I don't even think most people know that. So
I had no idea. So I feel like that's a great tip for especially earlier stage founders who might not have great access to working with people in PR. Set up your affiliates and use that as your pitch, as part of your pitch.
And it's not terribly expensive to set up, especially on ShareASale. I swear I don't work with ShareASale. I love them. So set it up on there, and it'll automatically really change the game for you in terms of being noticed.
Nice. Amazing tip. And then can you share a female founder, investor, or leader who inspires you and a little bit about?
Yes, I love this question. So aside from Blish, who inspires me every single day, two people that are the best about speaking your name in a room of opportunities would be Virginia Frischkorn, who is the CEO and founder of Party Trick, and then Sarah Allen Preston, who is the CEO and founder of Afloat. I think both of them are really in the business of helping other women. So they will always hop on the phone with me, talk me through something, same with Blish, and vice versa. And it can be really, and I'm sure for solo founders, especially lonely when you're building something and you don't know the answer. I mean, they'll do just about anything for you. And I think there's something to be said about women who actually do help other women. And these two are the real deal in that category.
Love that so much. goes so far. And also Virginia is who originally connected us. So I'd love to
Yes.
go full circle here.
See, I told you, she's always helping other women.
Amazing. And then finally, where can everyone find you? Where can they sign up for DeskSides?
So you can find me. I think the best place is probably LinkedIn. I'm posting kind of a lot about what we're doing on there, and then on Instagram at DeskSides. I won't plug my personal Instagram. It's a lot of pictures of me at weddings and my dog, and it's not very interesting.
Very fair. My personal Instagram is also that. Amazing. And it sounds like also your Substack. I'm going to plug that for you.
Yes. We just launched our Substack, Press Pass by DeskSides. You can subscribe. It's totally free. And we have really cool guests on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the show. I know I learned a lot. So excited to share all of your knowledge and wisdom with everyone listening.
Thanks for having me. This has been so fun.